This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 160. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
Howdy.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hey there.
Welcome back, Globetrotter Tam.
Hey.
From your jet-setting adventure.
I don't know what time it is anymore.
Yeah. You've now been up, what did you say, 21 hours, something like that?
Something like that.
It's time for podcast.
It's time for podcast. So this week, Grace and I were engaged in some utter madness. And I don't even know how this started. Grace?
Yeah, so this started talking to another friend about how we wish that WoW would let you scale your level to dungeon like you can in Final Fantasy XIV. So basically,
you would actually be the appropriate level for the dungeon when you go in.
Right. So, like that we sort of had this nostalgic feeling towards some of those old dungeons, and we wish that we could play them in a way that felt meaningful instead of just sort of powering through everything where you're with a party wearing heirloom gear and you just stomp all over everything. So we decided to do this really stupid thing. And of course the first person we asked to join us was Belle.
Because I do stupid things too.
And so we decided that the way to make this process of playing through these old dungeons challenging would be if we level locked at whatever the minimum level of the dungeon was, and not wear any heirloom gear, like only wear greens or whatever we could get from like questing.
Yeah, we have some written rules now, like
we have
level lock at the minimum level, and I'm like actually reading them off of our spreadsheet that we're keeping track of this.
Just so you know, like this category on our spreadsheet is titled LOL rules.
Use whatever means necessary in between levels. So like between what we're doing as a lock level, attempt all raids even if we super fail. Must complete all dungeons at level before moving on. No heirlooms in dungeons. Must get to dungeons naturally and zone in.
Really?
Yep.
Guys actually do the stockade?
Not
we haven't
yet.
gotten that far yet.
Gear cannot be solved by money, so no buying gear. Blue quality gear or higher has to either come from questing or from dungeon runs as a group, but not like from, BOEs traded down from somebody else. So yeah, like this is actually and the other part of this is like there's just three of us. So we're doing stuff in greens at minimum level with only 3 people instead of 5 people.
That sounds legitimately fun. I don't even like playing WoW, and it sounds legitimately fun.
It is hilarious. Like the fact that we got rolled so hard in
Ragefire?
Chasm. Yeah.
Yes.
I was about to say, you guys are going to have some fun times ahead of you. I'm looking at you, Black Fathom's Depths.
Look, so we did not plan this out well at all. We are 2 monks, 1 a brewmaster, 1 a mistwalker, and a rogue. So we have 3 leather wearers all competing for gear.
Nice.
I mean, to be fair, the gear that I want is going to be very different from the gear that you guys want. But at this level, really all anyone wants is stamina.
Yeah, so like it's crazy. And the other problem is like much like a paladin before they get shield oath, I am very much in that place where I was for the first 2 dungeons where like monks don't even have the core mechanic of how they deal with damage.
Aww.
Like, you don't get stagger until 16, which we just got. Like, we just bumped our level cap up by 1. But we've now done Rage Fire and we've done Dead Mines.
But it was so
I feel like the current
fun.
Dead Mines would be kind of rough.
It was not as bad because we had a little bit more gear by the time that we got to it, but Rage Fire was nonsense. And the thing is,
because you had like nothing going in, right?
We had nothing going in. We actually had to quit and come back and try again after getting some gear, because we went in there and like the first boss was rough. Like there's a bit that also we haven't done these dungeons. I don't remember what the bosses in Rage Fire
are anymore.
Well, yeah, we haven't done these dungeons very often since they've been updated back in Kata. And so the first boss is like this dog, and it did, I don't know, dog things, and it just hurt a lot and made us realize, like, oh, we actually might have to take this seriously.
This is serious mode.
The second boss was a spellcaster, and it required basically us to realize that we needed the tank to do some fancy kiting to buy a little bit of time when the boss was casting to run away so that I could finish healing up, and then we could continue the fight. So that boss we finally killed after Belle had died and Moore was kiting the boss around while I tried to heal. The third boss is like a giant lava worm thing, and that one wasn't too bad because that one had attacks that could mostly be dodged.
Except for you accidentally rolling off into the lava.
Look, I wasn't going to say anything about that. Thank you for sharing that. But so like the new Demon Hunters, like a lot of things in WoW, like sometimes when you roll, for whatever reason, you don't actually stop. You just keep rolling. And so I went to roll out of the way of a giant lava worm attack and instead like rolled halfway across the map into some lava. But I didn't die.
Well, that's what counts.
But then, we got to that last boss, and it just, like, we sat there, like, stressing out over it, because it's like, what is wrong with us? Like, are we missing something? Is it doing something fancy? No, it just does an AoE attack that, like, will hit everyone, and it was enough to essentially one-shot all of us in the gear that we were wearing at level 15. Like, there was just nothing we could do. And so that's when we realized, like, we had to go and actually farm a little bit of gear.
Yeah, and the core problem is, with the prevalence of heirlooms and how easy it is to get heirlooms, they're not expecting people to be in real gear anymore when they come into these dungeons, or at least be partially girded by the fact that you have a handful of people in heirlooms with you at all times. So, like, doing it for real is freaking hard.
And, there are some of the fights, and, like, especially in Dead Mines, like, there were some fights that, sure, they would have been a lot easier if we had had a full group instead of just the 3 of us. But that last boss of Rage Fire, like, it wouldn't have mattered if we had 5 people. If we were all in that scale of gear, we all still would have been one-shot. So, like, that was a pretty big wake-up call. But it also was incredibly funny and fun, so it was totally worth it.
I mean, and we did some silly things. Like, I spent a silly amount of time in Westfall running up and down the beach, killing oracles, trying to get this, staff that has 5 versatility on it, because that's really good. And then after getting one for myself, I did it again to grab one for Grace's character.
Because 5 versatility for a healer is really good when you're level 15.
But like we got leveled up to the next plateau, so at some point soon we're gonna try Wailing Caverns, I think. And
that's
then
next on the list.
It's a lot smaller than it used to be, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it is.
So yeah,
it's still annoying and sprawling, but it's not as bad as it used to be.
Well, it's funny. Like, I mean, I was streaming it earlier, and there are like 6 people watching us, and I question their life choices. for watching us do this dungeon.
Look, I mean, they were probably questioning our life choices for doing what we're doing, so
Probably so.
it's fair.
Yeah. But it's been fun. Like, it's been just a silly amount of fun because, the coolest part for me is the fact that, like, every single drop that I would have normally ignored is now somehow more useful. And I'm checking to see, does it have more stamina? Does it have, like, is this going to help me get over the next plateau?
Sounds like a really fun way to play WoW.
It's a really silly way of playing WoW. But yeah, it's pretty fun.
Now, what's the policy on crafting?
Crafting is totally viable, but then you run into the problem of, WoW crafting where you can't actually get a full set of anything at any given level.
Yeah, crafting in vanilla at low level is not great. Get something like close to full sets in the 50s, I want to say, at least for leatherworking. But hey, maybe you can tank in the sleep vest if you can find someone to craft it for you.
The what vest?
So when I was leveling up a druid, there is a leather chest piece that causes things that hit you to occasionally fall asleep. Druids at that point didn't actually have anything decent regarding AoE tanking, so this was pretty great. Sometimes things would just hit you and then they would just stop hitting you.
So about how many hours have you put into this?
I don't know yet, honestly. Like, we've made one night of failed attempts at Ragefire, and we probably ran back 6-7 times during that night. And then it still took us several attempts to get through Ragefire the second time. And Dead Mines, we started one night and then finished, had to restart and do it another night. So a significant amount of time.
Sounds fun.
It's been crazy, yeah. And we've got a couple people that kind of want to tag along too. But we're trying really hard just to keep the scheduling of it around the three of us for sake of it's hard enough to figure out a schedule for 3 people, let alone a whole bunch of other people. But we created this guild, and when you ask the 3 of us to name something, you get some interesting options.
Happened.
Yeah. So we are the RoboSquid Armada.
I thought RoboSquid was some new game you were playing.
No,
it is. Sort of.
It basically is.
We're making our own game out of WoW. But yeah, so yeah, we started a channel just to keep track of, because the problem was we were talking about farming and stuff like that over messages, and it was just easier to start a channel.
Look, we're super organized and taking this very seriously, or something.
It's awesome.
So we also one of the things that we've had to get used to is at some point they went through all the dungeons and re-leveled them. And this is post Kata even. They've kind of changed the levels to where we had to update our list. So it's going to be interesting because a lot of them moved up several levels earlier, which is going to be all the more interesting.
Scarlet Monastery is sooner. Dire Maul is now mid-40s, I want to say.
Scarlet Monastery is 26. That's the graveyard. The library is 29. The armory is 32.
But there are only 2 or 3.
The cathedral is...
The graveyard and the armory, I want to say, are one section now.
Maybe. According to this, Marden is 3 sections. That there's a purple and an orange,
Mardon has not changed in terms of geography, so it still has its 3 sections. But in the Dungeon Finder, they are leveled differently.
Yeah, and that's part of the weird thing is we're not using the Dungeon Finder, so we're gonna have to zone into all these things, and that was a weird
stockade.
No, the stockade is gonna be madness, and it's gonna be hilarious. Us rezzing through the zone as every Alliance player tries to kill us.
Yep. It's gonna be fun.
I think that's actually something we're gonna have to plot a course into Stormwind. What is the closest we can get without actually, alerting the guards?
You can't.
Before we start a run.
You really can't.
Yeah.
I did a lot of stealthing into and around Stormwind when they added achievements. It is somewhat difficult. So I guess that would have been pre-Kata. So I think it just got even more difficult.
Yeah. So another thing that is happening this week / weekend / next week is E3.
E3 is this week. EA had their conference today.
Yeah, and like I have this thing that, you know, in Harry Potter, when, you know, Harry is locked underneath the staircase and the Dursleys treat him super horribly. I feel like Harry is BioWare and the Dursleys are EA, and the only reason why I care about the EA conference is generally because of BioWare and the fact that EA holds the Star Wars license. And I usually am not expecting much from the EA conference, and I usually walk away disappointed anyway. But so there's this weird thing that I noticed this year. They spent a significant amount of time talking about their sports games, which are NBA Live and Madden and FIFA. But what was weird about it is all of them have functionally a roleplay mode in the game this year. And they started it last year with FIFA. And I guess they're doing it now with all of them, to where instead of just a career mode, you have like an actual story in the game where you have a protagonist that's named, and, you know, there are people that interact with the protagonist, and there are like RP cutscenes. And so, as a friend of mine said, they're basically putting the fantasy in fantasy sports. And it's interesting, like, because this is just now this appendage attached to their normal core sports franchise games. But I guess it was successful with FIFA. Like, I guess a lot of people played through the mode they call the Journey.
Oh, FIFA is huge.
Right. I'm talking about just the roleplay aspect that they put in last year.
Yeah. That's big. It's not in the US, but it's big.
Yeah, like, so there's one, the part of NBA Live is called The One, and the part of Madden is called Long Shot, and they're all basically the same sort of regurgitated sports movie in a game. Because like all the cutscenes they showed basically screamed like every sports movie ever. But I mean, if that's what you really always wanted to do in a game, I could see it. It's just, I find it interesting that like all of the franchises now have this role play aspect, because that's not really something you normally see in a sports game. I mean, like, they've often had career modes, but it's always a very shallow career mode where it's mostly build your own team out of the players that you always wanted to put on a team together. There's a weird game in the mix called A Way Out, and it's from the folks that did Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, and it's functionally a 70s era prison break game, but it is only a split screen 2-player experience. Like, there's no single player mode for it, and you can either do couch co-op or you can do online, but you functionally have to play the game as 2 people. So, like, it starts off with a prison break, and as you're going through the scenes, like, you have all these options of things you could do. Like, you can, you know, get 2 people to start a fight, and that distracts the guard, and then you can, you know, sneak out in the laundry hamper.
It's an interesting game.
It sounds really laundry hamster. I think we have a title of the episode now.
I mean, it does actually sound kind of interesting.
It does, but
as long
like,
as you have another person to play it with.
Right. So it's back to the Divinity Original Sin kind of thing, where you really need to commit time to play with one specific person as you get through the game, and that's cool. But like, I personally would have to find someone that's also interested in the game to, you know, play it through. And I mean, it continues past the prison break, and, you know, the 2 characters are on the run, and one of them has amazing mutton chops. Just saying. But it like seems like kind of the thing they were doing with Brothers, just in much, much higher fidelity, where you're controlling 2 characters on screen at once. Star Wars Battlefront was probably the core of the show and got the most showtime. And I find it funny that they talked about how they have this amazing cinematic single-player game experience coming, but showed next to none of that Instead, they showed off their multiplayer, which, I mean, looked pretty. It was a battle over Naboo, way more vehicle combat. And that in itself was interesting too, because like you had stuff going on the planet's surface, but you also had a atmospheric low orbit kind of thing going on too, to where there were ships up there flying around.
Oh man. So Star Wars Battlefront, that is a game that I wanted to love so much, because so much about it is so cool. And like they're putting a story mode in this one, I heard, which is basically an instant sell for me.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it's got multiple kind of story modes, like from different points of view. So, and also spanning multiple generations of the game. The other interesting thing that they're doing is they're committing to providing like a full season worth of free content, and they didn't cap it at only one season, but I guess they're shifting their focus from selling DLC seasons to trying to keep people engaged with the game longer.
Whatever.
Yeah.
That might be based on how the last one went.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some of the cutscene work from before the show, like just playing out, and it makes it seem like there's probably going to be an actual real story mode, and not just this is the multiplayer map and there's some AI running around it. And I guess that's the thing for me, is like Battlefield has never really had amazing story, and most of their story mode, campaign mode stuff has kind of felt like you're just playing the multiplayer, but you know, with a little bit of narration at the beginning and a little bit of narration at the end. So if they can keep this game from feeling like that, it's going to be amazing. Because the first one kind of felt like, you know, Star Wars Battlefield. But I feel like, Tam, you're probably going to be engaged in the fact that I guess there's like entire space battle modes where it's just space battles.
There were entire space battle modes in the original Battlefront.
I just didn't stick around long enough to see it.
And they were amazing. Like, they were incredibly fun. It was like having... They were really, really akin to Star Fox. Like playing Star Fox, except higher fidelity. I mean, I played hours... Like, I bought Battlefront, and was sort of disappointed in the local co-op mode, and also the, like, actual shooting people multiplayer, because it wasn't super balanced, and like it had some neat ideas, but
and some heroes were significantly better than others,
and it was so random how you got them, and like there wasn't any way to practice with them, so like you'd get it and you'd try to do as much as you could because it was important and you were limited time, but like you didn't really know what your buttons did or how to use them, and so like it wasn't... There were a whole bunch of just issues with it, but the space battles were awesome. Like, I think 80% of my time playing that game was in the space battles, because it was just so fun flying around, you know, dogfighting with people. You'd see they'd pop up like, these are targets, either defend them or destroy them, and you'd see the entire like battlefield shift. The way it was structured was you the players are ace pilots, but you're not the only things on the battlefield. There's a whole bunch of AI controlled, you know, like if you're playing Imperials, you might be in a TIE Interceptor or a TIE Bomber or whatever, whereas there's a whole bunch of like random TIE fighters around. And on the Rebel side, you know, you might be in an X-Wing or a Y-Wing or an A-Wing, but there were other, like, you know, Z95s flying around, or, you know, other X-Wings or whatever that were basically chaff for you to shoot down. And you got, you know, bonuses and could get streaks from killing from like blowing those up. But it made the battlefield seem really, really active, and not just with players. Like you'd be shooting out a whole bunch of TIEs and then realize that like one of those is an interceptor. And the AI was set up so that like if there was a player doing fairly well or just near you, they'd kind of become they'd sort of like follow you around a little bit, like wingmen.
Mm.
So it was just a really, really cool experience. And I wish that there was more to it. Like, I would buy an entire game that was just that. Like, you give me that game with a story mode and call it, I don't know, let's call it Rogue Squadron. I would buy it. Seriously though, it was like playing multiplayer Rogue Squadron, and it was just so good. I would play so much of it, given half a chance.
Well, it looks like it's going to have more of that.
Fantastic.
Plus, story mode and all that. And it'd be cool if like they could build a story mode that basically wove across all the game modes, to where there'd be some of it that's like a space fight. I think lastly, the thing that I was hoping to see there, that I sort of saw there, was Anthem, the new IP from BioWare.
I would like to see more than the teaser trailer before I get excited.
Exactly. Like, I know nothing. It's like, there's a wall, and it's a broke-ass world, and you have Titanfall-esque mech suits that you are significantly smaller, and you get in from behind, kind of like, the armor in Fallout. And everything ahead of this has made it out to seem like this is their competition for Destiny. And I didn't necessarily get that from the trailer, but I didn't also not get that from the trailer, because there's really not much there.
Much meat of any kind from that trailer. I mean, it looked kind of pretty, but otherwise, like, yeah, I need to know something else about this before I care about it in any way.
Like, there's a wall, and you apparently live in the wall, and there's apparently scary shit out on the other side of the wall. But past that, I don't really know anything.
I mean, that sounds all these things about the wall make me think of Bastion.
It certainly does not look anything like Bastion.
That's a shame.
Yeah, if it did, I might actually be excited about it even without knowing anything about it.
I couldn't watch the video. I may watch it like right now, because slight aside, Virgin Atlantic has the most garbagey in-flight Wi-Fi I've ever seen. And like, paying for internet while you're on a plane is already pretty garbagey. It's impressive to me that Virgin Atlantic manages to make it even worse. You have a limit on how much you can download, and it's 150 megabytes.
Yeah, that's pretty crap.
It's incredibly crap. I burned through it in like an Excel, and like I burned through 60 megabytes in one Excel file. Anyway,
I still think it's magic that there's internet on planes.
I mean, yes, fair.
But yeah, like, so you didn't get to watch it when I was linking it earlier in the day. There isn't much to watch. Like, it's really short. It's a tiny thing. But supposedly, during the Microsoft event, they're going to show more. And honestly, like, it felt like they really didn't have a lot to show, period. I mean, for the most part, I covered all the games that they talked about. I mean, I don't think I talked about the Need for Speed game that's Need for Speed meets Fast and the Furious, but, I mean, that was another game that they had.
Didn't they already do that? Like Need for Speed Rival or something like that?
No, well, that was Cops versus, I don't know. I don't know what the other side of it was, but, like, this is all a story mode driven thing about, boosting stuff with cars. And
wow, I just watched that teaser.
I just want another Burnout game. Is it that hard?
Burnout.
I mean, this seems Burnout-y because
no.
like, I don't know. But yeah, okay, so the Anthem teaser. Yeah, no, there really isn't much there, is there?
No, like, that wasn't a student project?
Oh.
Like,
It's a teaser with no info.
No.
No info at all. They only put out this year because Andromeda was not as much as I hoped it would be.
Yeah.
That's my prediction.
Yeah. That sounds accurate.
So tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific is when the Microsoft event is. So in theory, there'll be something else then.
So I'm getting a pretty distinct, like, Attack on Titan meets Pacific Rim thing here.
That's kind of what I felt too. Like, I did not get Destiny from that at all.
I would play that.
I mean, you see these big monstrous kaiju, and they're talking about how the wall protects them from the things outside. And then you have big mechs that you are presumably going to pilot to go fight the big things that live outside.
I'm not, super excited by that.
Pacific Rim may be one of the most perfect movies ever, so just saying.
Pacific Rim is not a good movie.
Pacific Rim is
No.
the best movie. We will fight.
Pacific Rim is an awesome movie, but it is not a good movie.
It is the best movie.
It is a beautiful and fantastic movie.
I'll put it this way. The BioWare rendition of Pacific Rim is not a game I think I want to play.
Aw. Like I said, that teaser had no info whatsoever. So.
Yeah. And to be totally fair, there are video game companies that I would play a rendition of Pacific Rim.
There are also video game companies where I would get excited about a contentless teaser.
Yes. But, BioWare is neither of those things.
Well, I mean, what was it? 3 years ago, they gave us a totally different brand new IP that was all Shadowrunny. Not Shadowrunny, but like somewhere between Shadowrun and World of Darkness kind of feel to it. It was supposed to be
BioWare?
Yeah, it was supposed to be an asymmetrical game.
I mean,
for the past few years, we've been bugging BioWare to get us any more information about Andromeda, so I don't remember anything else from them.
Yeah, no, this was the first year we went to PAX South. They showed some stuff about it, and it was Shadow something or other.
I don't remember this at all. I just remember BioWare trying very hard not to say anything about Andromeda.
Shadow Realms?
Shadow Realms, yes. It was canceled.
Yes, in 2015.
If you were to tell me that Guerrilla Games was going to make a Pacific Rim game, I would play it, by the way.
So
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Think of those as being the Killzone people, but I guess their most recent game is Horizon.
But yeah, I remember that being supposedly their new IP, and it was canceled within a year of the announcement, I think.
It seems like BioWare's been having some tough times.
Yeah, I've been having some tough times.
The best thing that
they're having the same problem a lot of EA studios had, in which they hit on something successful and then try to repeat that thing over and over and over, mixed results.
Well, and I don't necessarily feel like that's probably BioWare doing that. That seems to be the EA formula. So, I mean, I don't think being owned by EA has been good for BioWare. I'll just say it that way. EA seems to love predictable derivative games that they can release on regular intervals and get loyal fans to shell out for the next version.
They've had bursts of interesting stuff. I want to say Mirror's Edge and Dead Space came out within a year of each other.
It's whichever of EA and Activision is in second place churns out the derivative stuff. A few years ago, it was Activision churning out the derivative stuff, and EA was doing the really interesting creative stuff. And now Activision is doing some interesting creative stuff, and EA is churning out the.
Activision is also producing Call of Duty every.
Well, I mean, note that recently they've been doing very different things with the Call of Duty formula.
Yeah,
Call
they'll
of
actually
Duty World
experiment
War
with
II.
it.
Look, I know. Yes, I'm aware. I'm aware that
Because last year's, where they did an interesting thing, sold less.
Yes, I know. That's what I'm saying, and that's why we haven't had a continually dominant first place. EA was doing creative stuff, and then Activision surpassed them because EA was doing too much creative stuff, and then now Activision is starting to do creative stuff and losing ground. And Ubisoft is doing whatever the hell it wants.
Whatever.
And milking everything it makes for all it's worth.
Occasionally they have interesting new stuff, too.
Far Cry 5 is the first Far Cry that I've actually really been fully interested in. I occasionally play the games.
No interest in Far Cry 5, but I was interested in the last one they made, which was Far Cry Primal.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the weird Far Cry.
It's Turok Dinosaur Hunter again.
Yeah.
And Turok Dinosaur Hunter is pretty fun.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a far better Turok Dinosaur Hunter on the market, and it's Horizon Zero Dawn.
Those are Robo Dinosaurs. That's different.
They're still awesome.
Also, it is unfortunately competing for time with the most stylish game I have ever played.
I'm going to have to go ahead and grab that so I can, talk to you people about it and not be worried about spoilers.
Which?
Both.
Persona.
Okay. Persona 5. Persona 5 is so good. It is the most stylish game I've ever played. I've played some stylish games. I've played Parappa the Rapper and Killer 7.
Speaking of Parappa the Rapper, did you see that there is a Kickstarter for a game in that vein? I'm pretty sure by the same creator.
Yeah, with new characters.
Like Rap Rabbit?
Something like that.
That is a working title.
They also came out with, I think, a PS4 remaster of 1 and 2, I want to say. Maybe just the original. I'm not sure.
I don't think they've re-released Jammer Lammy yet. That was the one that I probably played the most of. But as far as the rest of the E3 shows, we have Microsoft and Bethesda tomorrow. And and Devolver Digital is having a full show as well tomorrow.
Ooh.
The super sad PC gaming show is having for whatever reason this year they are doing a midday slot instead of the late night slot they've had the last several years.
Devolver Digital picked a kind of awful time slot though.
Yeah, well, I mean it's like 10 p.m. Pacific following Bethesda.
Yeah.
Bethesda won't probably be fully over at that point. I don't like
not.
Bethesda even talking about Morrowind.
But they have no announced games.
That's the weird thing
So
about
it's
it.
a
Like,
little unclear.
right? Like, is this going to be? I know they're going to talk Quake Champions. That's a given. They might talk Doom VR and Fallout 4 VR, but I'm not sure if those are buzz enough generating.
Like, I know nobody plays ESO, but they did just release a huge, super well-rated expansion.
Yeah,
Yes.
but
Well, Capcom talked about RE7 at PAX South, so
Yeah.
it's a big part of their booth. So
yeah.
this might also be a large part of Bethesda's booth. But it's a little
I mean,
unclear.
they announced the expansion last year, I think, didn't they? I think that was like one of their big reveals.
I have this giant dwarf and whatever thing because it really did just come out.
I mean,
Yeah, no, it was like the 6th.
I would be really happy if they decided to announce something about Wolfenstein New Colossus.
That's
That would
my
be
hope.
nice.
It's probably likely.
Yeah, it seems likely.
But every year so far, they've managed to put on a really good show and release some interesting, footage for new stuff. So hopefully they have a bunch of stuff waiting in the wings. And I sincerely doubt we will get any kind of information about, an Elder Scrolls 6. I do believe when they say it is years away.
When was Skyrim actually announced? Because I
I-
remember it being way less time than expected between announcement and release.
So their big thing, like right now, seems to be not announcing it until they can say, "Here, it's going to be in your hands in 6 months," and that seems to have worked fairly well.
I mean, that's a pretty sustainable hype cycle, I guess.
Yeah, because I think it was about 6 months before we got Fallout 4.
Fallout 4 was rumored to be in development forever.
Right, just never confirmed. I mean,
All right.
no one in their right minds thinks that there isn't at least some early development happening for the next Elder Scrolls game. But it's not like they're going to magically stop that series.
Skyrim was announced on December 11th, 2010, and launched exactly 11 months later.
The funny one is Oblivion.
I was not into really PC gaming at the time, so I had no idea about that one.
If memory serves, Oblivion was launched. Oblivion was announced and launched 3 months later. They're just like, hey, there's an Elder Scrolls game. Also, it's coming out like right now.
Apparently, that one was 2 years. They announced it in 2004. Came out in 2006.
Maybe it was Morrowind. Might have been Morrowind.
Morrowind kind of came from out of nowhere. I remember that.
That one was also about 2 years.
And the show I'm looking forward to the most is probably Sony's again, and that's Monday night.
It'll be interesting. I'm also a little curious as to what the PC gaming show is going to actually have in it.
Well, and I'm
If it'll
wondering,
be as awkward as it was last year.
yeah, I'm wondering if like they're doing it during the day. I'm wondering if they're doing it during the day to get like more people to actually come and participate on it, like other game companies and such. I mean, Radeon is traditionally a sponsor, and they're actually in a decent position right now, or AMD.
First time in a while.
Yeah, and Intel is actually in a somewhat questionable position, so it's weird. So Tam, while you've been traveling, you said you have been playing a lot of Fire Emblem.
Yes. So I think I mentioned a few shows ago that I'd gotten into Fire Emblem Heroes, and Fire Emblem Heroes is really charming. It's a fun little game that I play on my phone, and it introduces me to all of these characters. I'm like, who the hell are all these characters? I don't know any of them, and there's a bajillion of them. And the app, the like mobile game, helpfully tells you from what, like, a little blurbs about the characters, and they have these like little tidbits of personality, and they helpfully tell you what game they're from. And I'm like, oh, a whole bunch of these, the ones that I like, are from Fire Emblem Awakening, and a bunch of these other ones that I think are awesome are from Fire Emblem Fates. I can play these games. So I picked up... So I already own Fire Emblem Awakening, and I tried it before and like kind of bounced off it, and I don't really remember why. I think because I didn't really understand what kind of game it was.
So I've never played a Fire Emblem game, so explain to me, like I'm 5 years old, what kind of a game it is. Because I've never understood from any of the things people talking about that game.
It is...
Fire Emblem is a turn-based, character-based tactics game.
Yes. It's Final Fantasy Tactics, except you care about all of the characters. It's also a dating sim.
The dating sim aspect is what everyone seems to dwell on, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense.
Part of the series until Awakening.
But
Awakening made it a big part of the series.
It's why I don't care about the rest of the series. Like, okay, so there's a war on or whatever, and my troops fight in that war or whatever. That is not why I'm playing this game. It's entirely irrelevant. If I have... Every time I have a unit take an action adjacent to or like teamed up with another unit, because they're like spending time together and working together, their relationship gets better, and they can like as they like work together more, they can like upgrade their relationship tier, whatever that happens to be. And it's not like it's with basically any other character, they can get more and more used to working with that person. And they get all these to the point where you can get like some utterly crazy bonuses for teaming up with the right person. But each like tier you upgrade is this little story vignette about these two characters getting closer or getting closer or working together or whatever. And the one that like hooked me was I have this like basic knight guy. Like he's just sort of a doofus knight, and his like defining characteristic is he's a foodie. And I have this other, like, my knight commander, who's this like super tough. She's like the super tough redhead who like wants to prove that she's stronger than any man. And she basically is. She's a complete badass.
She's pretty great.
Yeah, she's super great. And I had, because I was just like pairing people off essentially randomly at first, I started seeing these little bits where they would chat with one another, and she was like, hey, I'm going to spar with you because you're big. You're like a big dude, so I'm going to spar with you to show off that I can beat even somebody bigger than me. And like, I was like, okay, that was sort of silly, and I kind of understand these characters. And then the second time it's like, oh, hey, he was like, oh, hey, I won that time. And she's real mad. And he's like, whoa, why are you so mad? And she's like, because look, when I have to beat everyone always, because I'm a woman, I have to beat everyone always. You just have to beat me once, and then you'll be what everybody expects. And it was like, oh, whoa, this took a turn I wasn't expecting in these little character vignettes. And like, then his response to that is, I can beat you once, but you beat me every other time. Why don't we work together like we've been doing? Because we're both more awesome that way. And it's phrased better. I'm tired, so I'm not, and I don't remember it super well, but it's this interesting like weaving between their personalities, and like eventually they become partners and like are traipse around the battlefield murdering people because they're incredibly well suited to fighting alongside one another. But it's like, it was like, that was a really neat thing. And like, there's other interactions between other characters are like really cute or touching or interesting or whatever. And I'm like playing this game just to see all of these little character interactions, and in the meantime, like, I don't know, fighting a war against somebody or something. But there's just so many interesting characters. I want to play it again with different character options. And in some cases, characters could like fall in love and get married, at which point there's a section where later on in the game you're dealing with the descendants of your original group of characters who inherit stats and skills from their parents. And so there's this weird matchmaking thing going on in this game, as well as all of the other, like, it's a relatively deep combat system with, you know, various things being strong against other things and team up bonuses and tactical positioning, magic and different weapon types and so on. And a ton of different jobs sort of in the Final Fantasy Tactics style. But like I said, it's not really why I'm playing it.
So are the descendants as detailed as the original set of characters?
Yes, 100%. Including they can have their own relationships in the exact same way.
Okay, so they're not like procedural. They've just like literally decision treed out and created characters for every possible...
Quite decision treed out. Like, the descendants of Sully are always going to be this same person. But what skills they have are affected
Oh,
by,
okay,
you
so
know.
it's not if this person and this person, then this person.
Right, it's always going to be this person.
Yeah, it's always
Okay.
this person, but it's based on like certain other traits. But it's really interesting, and there's a bunch of like I started doing a thing because I kind of like because I had a group, I was pairing people off kind of as I got them because I wanted them to work together because them working together is super great. And I don't know all of the characters. I didn't know all of the characters I was going to get, so I just sort of worked with what I had as soon as I had it. And it meant that later on, I have all of these like kind of tragically mismatched characters that I'm just running alongside one another just to build up bonuses. And like they're developing these relationships kind of in the process. But some of the ones that I found that I like the most are the ones that like I was like, well, these two are going to hate each other, but I'm going to make them fight alongside each other because I think it's funny. But like I get these little bits, these little story bits between them, and they're really, some of them are like really sweet or really cute or just funny. And so I spend a lot of time like tactically matchmaking. It's I'm not playing the game on. I think this game would be amazingly tragic for me if I was playing it on like the default mode, in which classic, in which your characters can die. Like if they die in a battle, they're dead and gone, and like that would be unbelievably tragic for me, like having built up these touching relationships between people and then having like an errant crit kill one. Like suddenly this person's, you know, husband is dead because some archer crit them, and I'd be upset. And so I'm not playing on that mode because I don't need any of that. But it's this like the battle system is fun, and it, like Final Fantasy Tactics, it alters between, you know, easy but satisfying all the way up to like legitimately challenging and difficult, and you can push it even further if you want. It's got this like fairly in-depth job system, lots and lots of different weapons, and different weapons have advantages over other weapons, and there's all kinds of interesting little tactical bits. One of the ones that I find most interesting is you can pair people up so that two people move as a single unit, which hurts your action economy but makes all of your actions much stronger because you're getting significant bonuses from having a partner with you at all times.
This also boosts the relationship of those two people by a lot.
Yes, that too. It boosts the relationship with those people by a lot, and also it gives you a bunch of interesting things. Like, for example, if you're standing near another character when you initiate a fight, or if you're paired up with a character, you'll attack, and there's a chance that they'll join in on the attack. If you're paired up, that chance goes up, and if you have a high relationship value, that chance goes even further up. So like I paired up Crom, who's the blue-haired sword guy in this one, with my tactician character, and like that relationship is maxed all the way, and they will murder things. It is obscene. Like something big will attack them and it'll just die. But also one super powered unit can't win a battle by itself, so you've got to kind of.
I beg to differ.
I mean, okay, it could. Yes, it could. It's true. I probably could do that. Although some of the later
Griffin
missions
riders are very, very strong.
Yeah, I don't have any Griffin riders. I have a lot of
Pegasus riders or whatever.
I do have Pegasus riders. Pegasus riders are pretty rad. Flying around on
the clumsy one. I don't remember what her name is in this game.
Sumia?
Yeah, I paired her with Grom, and that pair could basically tear up the map.
I believe that.
So, like, if you pair someone with another person that, like, basically counteracts their weakness, is that a thing?
Yes.
Like you said, there's a clumsy person, so, like, if you put them with a super coordinated person...
This is just story-wise.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's actually a ridiculously badass Pegasus rider.
She is a ridiculously badass Pegasus rider. But, like, as an example, if you're a person on foot, you can't move as far. But if you're on a Pegasus, you can move really far. So, like, you can pair up a slow knight with a Pegasus rider, and the Pegasus rider can zoom around the battlefield and then deliver the knight to beat the crap out of whatever you want, and make up for the knight's movement weakness with crazy Pegasus speed.
Makes sense.
And similarly, you can have healers who can't attack, and you can embed them with like a bodyguard, basically, so that people can't bully your healers. You basically can have can set up tanks for your healers, which is how one of my one of my healers wound up basically marrying one of my super armored guys, just because like I was like, look, I need you to be as safe as possible because you're my healer. Get behind this guy who's a walking wall of metal and doesn't take damage from anything. And she was like, okay, seems reasonable. But yeah, because there's a lot of rock, paper, scissors-y things going on, and like different weapon types, there's a lot of like switching in battle and figuring out how best to hit a certain opponent. Because like whenever you start a fight, like declare an attack action, both you and the person you're attacking get to attack. And so you get to attack first if you're the attacker, but if you're not hitting the person hard enough to one-shot them, they can hit you back. And if you mess up your numbers or are attacking the wrong thing, like you can hit them and do almost nothing, and then they can just one-shot you back. So you've got to be aware of how to do various things. There's also people who turn into dragons. Not really.
That seems problematic.
I mean, they're on
your team.
They're all on my team thus far. I haven't run across any enemies that turn into dragons. They're also all mildly annoying, as you...
Mildly?
Yeah.
I guess, have you met Tiki yet?
I haven't met Tiki. I've met Noe.
I find Tiki not annoying at all, and Noe far more than mildly annoying.
I make Noe run around with the other kid, and that's pretty funny.
I don't know.
Like Rickon or whatever.
Oh.
Like that's actually like legitimately cute, but no, she's pretty annoying. Gregor, on the other hand, is awesome. Like Gregor is hilarious. He's this mercenary guy, but I don't know. I thought he was dumb at first, and the more time I spent with that character, the more awesome I think he is.
Is he the one that no one ever notices?
No, that's Kellen the Knight. That's right. Super big wall of like. There's a bunch of ridiculous characters. Like there's a giant cast of ridiculous characters. One guy he's like a defender style knight. He's in the most ludicrously huge suit of armor I've ever seen. Like he looks like he's just in a tank, walking around in a tank. But his thing is that he's so unassuming that people don't notice him ever. And like by not notice, I mean there's a scene in which your tactician character is trying to figure out if your camp is haunted because every time people sit down, cups of tea appear in front of them and they don't know why. And he's like, no, that's me serving the tea. Nobody notices me. I also made him into a thief, and he's a ridiculously good thief.
Wait, what? I didn't even know that worked.
Yeah, you can, because you can change classes.
Yeah, but there's a limited number of classes you can change people into. I'm amazed he has Thief available.
He has Thief available. He totally has Thief available.
I mean, nobody notices him.
Nobody notices him. I turned him into a thief. He's legitimately a better thief than both Anna and Gaius. Like,
Gaius is great. Actually, a great thief.
No, Gaius is garbage. Anna's pretty good. They have a bunch of. There's also some other. There's a bunch of really interesting things going on in some of the fights where if you get the right character, usually Crom, to talk to an enemy character rather than fighting them, like if you can get close to them, close enough to talk to them, and then talk to them before
you see an enemy with a name. One of the main characters over there.
Yeah, a lot of times you can talk to them, and it's not easy because it means it takes some like delicate positioning, because sometimes they'll like jump one of your guys and get murdered, and you lose the chance at them, but like you can talk them over to your party. And so like there's a thief who's obsessed with candy. There's like, I'm not really sure what the Dark Mage's deal is, other than being a creepy stalker. But you can talk her into joining your party too.
She's just a creepy stalker.
I'm pretty sure she's just a creepy stalker. But yeah, you can like collect all of your characters, and then they can be friends with each other, and you save the world in the process. It's super charming.
That would be the aspect that would get me, because I like when there's a game that has multiple characters that you can collect, I end up trying to collect everyone.
Oh yeah, and you totally can.
Because that was part of what took a bit in my playthrough of Tyranny, was trying to get every single character and figure out how to befriend them enough to get them.
Yeah. This is easier. The harder thing is like deciding who you're going to have fight alongside each other so that they become better friends. This is the greatest difficulty I have in this game.
I remember who I paired Rickon up with now. I paired Rickon with the other mage. They had a super mage kid.
Tharja?
No, not her.
It doesn't seem like it would work out very well.
No, not her. I
mean, then again, I paired up some ludicrous. I put some ludicrous people together, and like Lonku and Muriel. Lonku and Muriel.
I had Lonku and Sully.
Like that would make sense. That makes more sense than Lonku and Muriel. Muriel is like a really, really stuffy mage, and Lonku is a kind of shy swordsman. It's a bizarre pairing. But there's stuff written about all of these. Anyway, it's a super charming game. I picked up Fates and started playing that, and it's equally charming. Like Fates is even more carefully refined. Like it makes it clear. Awakening did not make it clear to me immediately, and I think why I bounced off of it. It didn't become immediately clear that this is a game about characters and the relationships between those characters. Whereas Fire Emblem Fates is real obvious about it from the word go. And I already want to play the multiple paths of that one.
I have not played Fates or even really picked it up.
Fates is... I'm actually more invested in the story of Fates than I am Awakening.
I mean, it has more story just immediately from the word go.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Like
it takes a long time for Awakening's story to actually get going, and then even longer for it to make any sense.
Yes, I've gotten to the first part, but not the second, because I keep on getting distracted by. I'm belling my way through that game. I am finding
Ooh, shiny
every possible thing.
Random encounters show up on the map sometimes.
Yes, and I destroy all of them before moving on. Everything has to die, because every fight I get into is more chances for people to be friends. It's maybe not the same motivation that Bell has.
Friendship through massacre.
Sounds like the same motivation to me.
Okay.
I've been playing so much of this, and it's fantastic. And it manages to scratch both the Final Fantasy Tactics itch and also the, like, I don't know, charming character drama itch. If you like either of those things, I recommend it.
So last week, Ash, you were playing through Hollow Knight.
Yes, I beat Hollow Knight over the course of last week.
Kodra, have you also been playing that?
I am also playing some Hollow Knight.
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain this is the best Metroidvania I have ever played.
Really?
Yes. I like
it
more than any of the Castlevania games.
It's very good.
I like it more than Ori and the Blind Forest as well.
Oh, man.
And it also manages to tell a not entirely happy story without immediately going, Here's 11 sads.
So we talked a little bit ago about how I feel that one of the unsung influences of Dark Souls is Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Right.
Just in the feel of the world that you're inhabiting. And I feel like this game in particular does a very good job at doing a lot of the things that Dark Souls 3 specifically does very well, especially with its NPCs. Because for the most part, you hear people talk about Dark Souls games as being pretty lonely, but there are, especially in 3, a number of NPCs, both that wander around in the world, giving you periodic cutscenes and talking to you and building their own character, and also back at in the case of Dark Souls 3, the Firelink Shrine has an ever-growing cast of characters. And sometimes you'll meet somebody out in the world and you'll rescue them, and they'll go back to Firelink Shrine and they'll help you out from there. And sometimes you meet characters out in the world and they're going to want to continue adventuring because that's what they do. And this game does a really good job at giving you both of those types of characters, and also characters that like to go back and come out. It makes the world feel a lot more lived in while still maintaining the sort of hostile, dark feeling.
There's also something to be said for how it manages to tell its actual story. There is not a lot of exposition. Little there is mostly comes from a recurring boss fight. A character says things to you, which admittedly, when you first meet her, you have no reason to believe she's telling you anything real. But mostly it tells its story through the environment, sort of how Dark Souls actually tells its story. There are NPCs who have some things going on. Some of them are related to the main story, but most of them kind of aren't. You eventually get an ability that will reveal to you the thoughts of your enemies if you get them with this ability. It also gives some additional background in places where you wouldn't otherwise find any, like boss fights. And also, I'm trying to avoid spoilers as much as possible here, but the world itself changes in some ways to reveal to you things that are going on. Going really any more into that is that spoiler for endgame-ish stuff.
The feel of the game is great, especially once you start getting some of your movement-related powers.
Boy, does that game hold off a long time on giving you double jump.
I honestly don't know how much I am missing double jump because I have wall jump.
You get a Mega Man X-like wall jump, which is pretty sufficient in most ways for mobility, in addition to the dash you get.
I mean, I feel like Castlevania Symphony of the Night a lot of times uses double jump in places where you would have used a wall jump in other games. Like, you have to do one jump and then another shallow jump to get across a chasm that you might have been able to wall jump across.
Aria of Sorrow gives you the ability to float. It uses that to let you cover long jumps, and then gives you double jump to cover higher jumps. I think some of the other Castlevania games that came along after Symphony of the Night did the same.
Well, to some extent, Symphony of the Night had bat form for extremely long jumps.
Yeah, once you had bat form, it kind of just trivialized movement in a lot of ways.
But, thankfully you kind of got that. If you actually follow the appropriate flow of that game, you got it fairly late. I've heard so much about this game for people that are playing it, but I in part was kind of waiting for the Switch version that supposedly... Yeah.
This game's really good.
I've been told that the game is really good and that I wouldn't enjoy it.
That might be true.
Do you know why you wouldn't enjoy it?
I've just been told, hey, this is a good game, but you probably won't like it.
Because I know you're not a fan of that style of storytelling. It withholds even the map from you for a long time. It actually makes you explore and find a specific character in each area before you can even track where you are. I don't know if that would frustrate you if you would enjoy it, but I sort of lean toward the former.
I mean, is there some reason why I wouldn't just paper map that?
You could. You're going to get a map eventually. You could. Or if your sense of direction is pretty decent, that also works.
Yeah, usually when I don't like something like that, it's because I feel like it's just forcing me to do something out of game that I should be able to just do in game. I can sit and grid out a map, but if I'm going to
This
do
is the
that,
thing. I never felt forced to do it because usually near the, well, not too far, there is a trail of paper, and when you get close enough, a humming sound that tells you where the cartographer actually is.
Oh, then yeah. I mean, the game has to have a pretty good reason to deny me the map because I can just make my own. Because like, there's nothing stopping me from making my own map unless the actual map is changing on the regular. But it doesn't mean it's impossible for it to do something interesting. But I might wait for the Switch version.
I'll probably end up picking it up because a lot of people have told me that I really need to play it given my reverence for Symphony of the Night.
I don't know. They actually have some content coming out for it next month. I have no idea what they're actually doing to it.
Is it a DLC or is it?
It's free, but yes.
Like, it seems like one of the things they said implied fast travel.
I mean, there already is some fast travel, but I'd be okay with some more. What exists is somewhat few and far between.
Yep. I'm currently fighting the Mantis Lords, and hoo boy.
It takes a long time to get back to that boss fight if you die down there.
Yep, and that is a boss fight that does not want to forgive you.
Bosses in this game kind of remind me of Mega Man, like, except you never get a weakness weapon. You do have to learn their patterns.
Do I have to fight all three of these?
No comment. No. Once you kill the first, you just have to fight the other two at the same time.
What? No.
Learn the first one's patterns really, really well, because you have to do it in fast forward. I actually like that boss fight. I one-shot it, unlike some of the others earlier and afterward.
It's really amusing, the things that I breeze through and the things that you one-shot that I get just completely flummoxed by.
Well, one of the things that stopped me early was a mini boss fight of sorts, where you get locked in a room with this one knight. And it took me a lot of tries to beat him, like 5 or 6. As soon as you go through that room, you discover that that's a normal enemy now. But trying to learn that, I got really good at some of the, shall we say, low percentage plays and bouncing off of things' heads to kill them as they dash at you. This was a very, very valuable skill for the Mantis Lords fight.
Oh man, trying to bounce on these guys' heads seems terrible.
It's great. Your hitbox is nice and generous when you're swinging down. Just make sure it lines up with their dash.
Well, do we have any other topics that we want to discuss before we call it a night?
I did start playing Persona 5, and it's really, really hard to talk about that game without spoilers.
Yes. I know them feels. It's so good that you want to talk about it, but it's impossible to talk about basically any part of it without spoilers.
Look, I have a bunch of shit from Andromeda that I would like to talk about, but none of you have beaten it.
So I figure I should play something else that somebody else has played.
Something.
Rather than jumping into, like, Mages of
Yeah.
Nostalgia, which is what I was going to do next originally.
Horizon was so good, too. So good.
Look, this is hard, okay?
There's so many games. There's been a really
too many
good year for
games.
games already. Maybe no more good games will... Oh, wait.
I mean, Andromeda kind of let me down as far as multiplayer experiences go this year, but maybe Splatoon won't.
So are you going to, hook up the nonsense chat interface?
No. Look, no. Why would I do that?
I don't know.
Ever. If I were going to do that, I would just install TeamSpeak on my phone.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess for those unaware, Nintendo is planning to do their version of chat through a phone app of some kind.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it looks really dumb.
It looks really dumb.
Yes.
Is this the online features that they're telling me I'm going to want to pay them for?
Yes, which...
I'm not going to want to pay them for?
The choice is yours.
And there's like a nonsense pass-through cable.
Well, that was just the one Hori headset. We don't know if they're all going to be like that.
I don't know.
But Hori came out with a headset that matched Splatoon 2 that has some sort of weird cable attaching to both the Switch and your phone, and they expect you to do this thing.
What?
I don't know. Someone is delusional.
Nintendo. The internet is not that hard. Like, you can hire people to internet for you.
They did. They hired a mobile company, whose name I can't remember right now.
Oh my god. What is this
nonsense?
nonsense?
Yeah, that is nonsense.
Yeah, maybe hire a different company to internet for you.
Hire a company that knows how to internet. Or knows how to do hardware.
That's a little harder. They did hire a company that knew how to do internet. That's why we have Fire Emblem Fates and Super Mario Run.
It's fair. Fire Emblem Fates is way more fun
Or
than
not Fates.
or Heroes.
Yeah.
It's way more fun than it makes any sense.
It's actually pretty funny. While playing, I just beat that Mantis Lord's fight. I definitely found 2 easier than 1. Because 1 pattern went away, and that was the pattern I was having the most problems with.
Which pattern? The high-low throw?
The high-low throw.
Okay. The one mantis they throw into jump or not jump, based on how high he is when he throws it. 2 Mantis Lords, they always appear at the same height, and you need to either jump or not jump based on how fast they throw it, which is easier to see.
Well, by the lengthy silence, that sounds like we've wound down.
Seems
I'd
like
say
it.
so.
Yep. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the show and will join us again next week as we probably talk at least a little bit more about stuff that came out at E3 and, in theory, talk a little bit about Stormblood, since the Head Start will be going on.
And I will have
At
put
that point.
a whole bunch of time into it already.
Anyway, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.